Bien le bonjour tout le monde. Je me présente, je suis François Dedard de la société RS Components. Je suis responsable de projet et je suis en charge donc d'une thématique autour de la maintenance connectée. Et je suis accompagné donc de Dave Lister que je vais laisser présenter. Dave, if you please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. Okay, so my apologies for not presenting this in French for starters. For those of you who are expecting French, I'm sorry to let you down. But obviously, since Brexit, we're not allowed to do that anymore, as you know.
Don't joke.
Yeah, I'm the MD of a company called IA Connect. We have a long-term relationship with RS Components. We are IoT specialists, IoT systems integrators. And we're proud to be part of the journey that RS is taking in the IoT space, and we're hoping to share some of our knowledge across the next couple of days regarding how we see IoT and hopefully how we can help moving forwards.
Thank you, Dave. Donc là, la présentation, donc Dave, bon, comme vous avez pu le voir, va présenter en anglais. La présentation, le support est en français. Si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas, en anglais ou en français, comme vous voulez, on traduira de la manière à ce que vous puissiez avoir toutes les réponses concernant ce sujet. Je vous remercie. Dave, you can start if you want.
I'd love to. I'm just intrigued to see what's on the next slide. Okay. That wasn't one of mine, Francois, but let's go with this and see it. Let's go with this and see how we get on. So, okay, guys. So I'm going to do this the best I can. Obviously, it's a challenge for anyone when these slides are in that you've created are in French, but you're going to try and present this in English. And I'm going to try and speak slowly. I'm terribly guilty of speaking too fast when we do these things, so I'll try and keep it slow. And if anybody needs me to stop at any time, feel free to raise your hand, and I'll go back and do the best I can, and I'll get my my good friend Francois to translate on my behalf. So, by way of an introduction, this being the plan, by way of an introduction, there's some points that I think before we start this, there's some things I'd like you to consider, because these things really. These points, these 6 key points, represent the direction that you need to travel. And for us, these are the key points that we've learned from. So you have to understand that some of these we've done well, and some of these we have done badly. And this is why we bring these to the forefront of the presentation. And hopefully what I'm about to tell you will help you answer some of these questions as we move forward. So firstly, believe in your strategy. If you're going on an IoT journey, you need to believe in what you're doing, and you need to then commit to that journey, you as an individual, but also the people around you, and convince everyone to commit to the journey, because it's quite often a challenge and it's something different, and you really need to focus on what it is that you're doing. So then, secondly, define and document your values, both corporate and personal. So really understand what your business is trying to achieve and the message that you're trying to put forward. Once you understand that and you all agree on it, and you then buy into it, then that can help define the direction that you're going to go on to. Next, localize your efforts. Understand your social and geographical differences. This is quite an important point on the topic for today. You know, people see things in different ways. Different countries see different ways. People have different values, and businesses have different values. And even inside businesses, people have different values. People take value from different topics and different results. So it's very important that you understand each individual, because your beliefs, your understandings, your values, and what you're trying to achieve may be great for you, but may be completely out of alignment with some of your colleagues. So involve everyone, leave nobody out. That's really important. Again, you want to make sure that people understand why you're putting sensors in place. What are you trying to achieve? You need them to make them understand that this is for the greater good of you and the business and the environment, or whatever your goal is. And then actively encourage participation from these people. We've seen this so many times where we work with IoT teams and IT teams, and they have a great vision for what they want to do, but nobody tells the rest of the teams what they're doing. And people tend to object to sensors arriving, especially when you look at people movement and under desk sensing and location sensing. People become very suspicious. But then also, finally, and I guess most importantly after all that, understand and financial implications of your strategy, and define what they are, and then monitor them and publish them along your journey. Okay, so just some key points for you to consider as I kind of start off on this presentation journey for you. So, okay, the simple question here is let's start with a question for you all. You don't have to answer it. It's just one hypothetical one to make you think what we're doing here. What are your assets? You know, this is the most important question that I ask every single person that we engage with, no matter where they are in the world or no matter what the country is. I always ask the question, what are your assets? And I never get the same answer. Okay. Are your assets, or do you view your assets as planets, as people, as machines, as buildings? Well, the truth is everything and everyone is an asset. Okay. And the minute we understand that everything is an asset, we start to link everything together. And the IoT journey really is about linking things together and not missing anything out. And understanding that although you have a factory, for example, and you're interested in a machine that works in a factory, you must also be interested in the building itself, in the people that are working in the building, where the factory sits in the world, and how it presents itself to the rest of the planet, and all of the things around it, because everything is about that. And what we're interested in on everything that we do in the IoT and industrial IoT world revolves around the experience and efficiency. You can bring everything back to those two things. Am I enjoying it? Can I make it better? And is it working better? In a nutshell, that is what we try to achieve in the world of IoT. So, okay, so now let's start to think about the potential, what we call the potential IoT landscape. And you'll have to kind of bear with me on this one a little bit because it may seem a little bit repetitive, but I think it's important that everybody understands exactly what we're talking about here and exactly why each particular segment that I refer to is very similar. Before we go on, just excuse me if I keep looking left. It's because I've got the English version of these slides over here. I have no clue what's on the screen, so please excuse me. Okay, so let's start with the IoT landscape as is, and you'll notice from our slide here we consider everything to be in the IoT landscape, whether it be agriculture, whether it be domestic, whether it be smart buildings. All of those elements come into the same point. And the truth is, all of those particular elements that you see on the screen can be serviced by very, very similar technology, very similar protocols. And this is really the key message for you today. Don't be scared to use multiple protocols to solve a problem, because it is possible in this day and age to make sure that those protocols are brought back to the same location and they are normalized and they can be shared wherever you want. It's not good to just choose one product and one protocol just because you feel you have to. It's not the way it is anymore. There is a different way, as we hope to then show you. So let me give you a couple of examples, and I'm going to flick through these quite quickly because I think you'll see a pattern emerging through all of these things. So if we look in the first instance at a smart campus, as we call it, a school, if you're familiar with campus in French, the translation, just some examples of things that we've done along the way. So for example, parking, we monitor parking. In this instance, our go-to protocol and product of choice comes from LoRaWAN. I understand LoRa is extremely prevalent in the French marketplace. You're all very familiar with it. We find that LoRaWAN in particular for that kind of application is a really, really good product, and we often use it. And I'll come back in a little while to this box that you keep seeing here with the IA logo on, the gateway as we call it. And when I refer to normalization of protocols, everything comes back to us in this box, but we'll go into that a little bit deeper as we move on. Okay, so and next of all, we have a smart factory. Again, you'll start to see that even in a smart factory application, when we start to look at energy monitoring and metering, again, our friend LoRaWAN here makes an appearance, but also we've introduced another product called MBus, which is prevalent in the metering space and often used in that industrial IoT space. Again, so you'll recognize this pattern as we go through. So then, of course, when we then move into the smart offices, which we used to work in offices, do you remember that? But also when we do get back to the office to make them smarter, again, you'll see that there is different protocols here that become more relevant inside. LoRaWAN, very good, extremely good outside, very good inside. But actually, we've worked with other products along the way. We use products for people counting and movement of people, which run on Wi-Fi. We use under-desk sensors for looking at utilization of desk space. And we use a protocol called workplace occupancy. Other protocols like NOcean, etc., are all very good at this. etc. But we use a mix and match of all of these depending on the application. We're absolutely not scared as a business to use the different protocols. So outdoors, intelligent environment, LoRaWAN, fantastic. You'll see that one making an appearance again. So again, I'll flick through these. And then in transport and logistics, we use GPS tracking because obviously that gives us that range. So the message that I'm trying to get across as I flick through these slides, even coming back to an intelligent house here, is that you'll notice that in each particular place, there is different protocols that are very good. So even in the domestic environment, coming back to the point I made, there's multiple different protocols, and you shouldn't feel you only have to use one. It is possible by using the technology we have today to take data from every single one of these sources, normalize that data, and share that data with a cloud platform that's going to do some control and some AI for you as is required. So as I promised you, I'll flick through these a little bit quicker. Storage, again, you'll notice that LoRaWAN arrives. And hopefully that's the end of those ones for you. So let me see what's next. So here we go. This really summarizes why we're in business and why we're here today, and it summarizes everything that we do. We call it the IoT problem. In the previous slides, I showed you multiple different protocols doing multiple different jobs in multiple different environments. Okay, and I said they were all very good, which they are, and I don't dispute that. The problem traditionally was that when you deployed multiple protocols to solve your problem, each one of those protocols had typically its own gateway, and it's had its own connection stream to a cloud base. And that became problematic from managing data perspective. So down here, we have temperature, we have people movement, switches, CO2, humidity. And each one of these different colors you see across the bottom of the screen was coming into a gateway. And then to get to the cloud, there was 3 different instances, usually chargeable, and 3 different instances and 3 different protocols had to make their way up to the point where you're doing your processing and your decision making. That for us was the problem that set us off on what is our IoT journey. So we decided to solve that problem, and we created a product called Mobius Flow. Mobius Flow is a software product which resides on the gateway, which you've seen a second ago. And the job of Mobius Flow as a product is to take all of those different protocols. It normalizes the protocol. It allows you to manage those protocols on the edge and do your edge-based processing, but it communicates a single MQTT protocol with the cloud. And it's completely agnostic to the cloud. So it doesn't matter whether your business or you as an individual, if your preference is Amazon, if your preference is IBM, Watson platform, or Google, AWS, Azure, whichever one of those, we have connections directly into each or multiple versions of that cloud. That's what makes us different. That's what we bring to the table and really is our go-to change. Okay. And that's the point where you'll start to see the benefit, because we've taken away, you'll see before, we've taken away the multiple streams that you used to have and the multiple cloud connections, and hopefully we've taken away multiple layers of cost. So a typical connection from our point of view, and this is the world that we operate in. So we have an RS Pro version of this gateway here, and this is available through your colleagues that you see on the screen and our friends at RS. And this gateway is the tool that we use for the purposes of processing. It's an Intel-based product. It comes from a globally recognized manufacturer. So it's completely acceptable wherever you are or wherever you want to send it on the planet. It has cellular options and it has Wi-Fi options. And the way that we connect those in is we use these protocol connectors here. If we use NOcean, for example, in any one of our applications, or IQRF, or even Bluetooth or Zigbee or Z-Wave, we use these connection tools, typically power over Ethernet tools, that connect to your network. They pick up the sensor data, they pass the data over the network to the gateway, and then we from the gateway, either via cellular or via the network or the internet, pass the information to the cloud for processing. Okay. Now, there is a slight addition to this slide, which wasn't there last time we did this presentation. There's been some changes, but I think we come on to that independently on the next slide about how you can now use your existing AP access point, wireless access point network for the purposes of connecting some of these devices. So without further ado, I'll explain that one to you as well. So as part of our long-term relationship with RS and the work that I've done personally with Francois in their own offices, we've worked with a protocol called NOcean. Hopefully the people attending may be familiar with NOcean. energy harvesting, very prevalent now around the world. EnOcean ourselves have worked with Aruba and now also with Cisco to provide connectivity through your existing wireless access point architecture. So if you are Wi-Fi 6 and above and you're an Aruba customer and you want to start using IoT applications and connecting sensors, there is actually kits available now where there's a simple USB plug-in device which creates an EnOcean link plugged into your Aruba, or in the future, not too distant future, into your Cisco wireless AP in your environment, and you can then collect all of the EnOcean sensor data that you previously did before. So the data comes in from the sensor through the USB stick into your wireless access point. It comes to us via Mobius to enable you to manage the data and translate the data from the sensors, and then we can then pass the data on to wherever you would like it. So that's a big step change in the world of IoT that we're really proud of at this particular moment in time, and something we can certainly discuss with you guys if anybody is interested. Okay, cool. So let me give you now, conscious of the time, let me give you some use cases, because I think it's important to put some context into this and to add some weight to the sort of things that we do. So what I'm going to do in the next few slides is run you through some of the use cases that we've completed ourselves. We've been lucky enough to be quite relevant in this space. The biggest, I think, I guess probably one of the biggest jobs we've completed in the last I would say year. It was the start of last year before the world went completely mad. But yeah, we were lucky enough to work with a company in London where we installed 3,500 under desk sensors across 28 floors of their building in London. We're now we're just waiting to look at the additional buildings, first in The Hague and then in America. They used a protocol in that instance. They used partly EnOcean, but also workplace occupancy. And we used some of the tools that I've shown you in the last slides, the connection tools and the Mobius software. We deployed those across 28 floors, put 3,500 sensors underneath the desks for the purposes of creating an under desk sensor or a digital twin, I guess was what you would call it, for their occupancy. And the reason we show an air quality monitor in there is once we've done the initial deployment with the connectors and the gateway, it now means that they're looking at air quality monitoring. Obviously, post-COVID, they're looking at CO2 monitoring. And the great thing for these guys is across all 28 floors now, there is no additional infrastructure required. It's all done via the existing infrastructure they put in at the start of last year. And they can continue to add to that. So it doesn't matter what they put in now in the future, temp, humidity, CO2, leak detection, all of those great things. And then again, this contributes to improving the workplace for all of its employees. So another application which we completed recently, this one in particular was for a how would you describe it? These guys they work in the care industry, so in nursing homes and domestic care situations. I'm sure, Francois, you have a French translation for the care home business and nursing homes, I guess we call them. So we worked with these guys and we deployed a series of retrofitted a series of EnOcean devices that monitored the movement of the elderly people in the being. So we realized in the UK, I can't speak for France, but in the UK, elderly people, they are very habitual. They get up roughly the same time and they like to go to the toilet. Then they make themselves a drink and then they get something to eat. Then they watch telly and everything becomes a pattern. So what the EnOcean devices were doing in this instances was looking at patterns. And when the patterns changed, this then creates alerts to the people who are interested in the care working. If the individuals aren't getting out of bed at the right time, or if they're getting out of bed too many times, we can start to trigger alerts. But we can also give them some protection by looking at leak detection methods, looking at air quality in the rooms to make sure these guys are moving around. And it's actually moving into the health service now, where in the aftercare post-hospital, these people now have devices that we can deploy inside their homes to make sure that they're moving when they're supposed to be, in conjunction with their care package needs. So a real interesting application there, but really simply done, very much off-the-shelf products. The only difference being is there was some software from a third-party provider, but the technology, there was nothing new, very much off-the-shelf products. Here we go, Gatwick Airport, which used to have planes flying out of it. spent a fortune last year and over the last 2 or 3 years renovating all of its toilet facilities. As part of that exercise, we did some lighting control, which is independent of this. But because for the lighting control, we used EnOcean wireless PIRs and switches. At the point when they started to worry about leaks and burst pipes, we used the same connection technology that already existed to deploy these leak detection sensors that you see here. The leak detectors were connected to the EnOcean sensors, the EnOcean collectors, and then they used smart valves on the hot and the cold water feeds. So whenever there was a leak behind any one of these walls or any of these fixtures or the plant rooms associated with these devices, the leak detection device from EnOcean that's completely energy harvesting, it picks up the leak, it sends a message to the valve, it isolates the hot and the cold water, and the system immediately sends a text message to the on-call engineer to say there's a problem, and it sends a message to the CAFM system to say that we've had to turn the water off because there's been an alert. And we estimate at this moment in time, the first time they had a leak, it's in pounds, but the cost of the primary leak that they suffered was roughly £35,000. So I guess 40,000 euros. The cost of the installation to protect it was under £2,500. So you can see now we on 3 separate occasions in the last 18 months, our system has isolated the water the water feeds due to a leak. So the return on investment in that instance, really, really good. Here's a project that we did in Canada. We used Wi-Fi based people counting technology across 85 locations inside a Canadian college, 86, here we go. And the reason we mention this is because the people counters are fairly standard objects, but because we use them in conjunction with our Mobius software and the gateways and the products I introduced you to earlier on, we were also able to take in the washroom and RFID readers for washroom monitoring that were added, and also the bin sensors. So these were 2 companies that we had nothing to do with, but it became clear that bringing their data into our Mobius platform and normalizing all of that data in our world so the cloud provider and the AI provider only got one feed was absolutely the way forward. That made life easier for those guys. So a really good application for us. And I think on that note, that's probably my last slide. I think I seem to have more in English than I did in French, Francois, so I do apologize. But I hope
thank you.
I hope you've all understood that. And if anybody has any questions at all, please feel free to speak up or get in contact. We'd love to help, despite not being in France. Francois.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave. Thank you for this presentation. Donc, si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas. Avec Dave, on va tâcher d'y répondre. Sinon, je vais aussi. Marion nous a rejoint. A eu un petit souci technique au départ. Bonjour Marion.
Bonjour.
Je vais te laisser te présenter, Marion.
Oui, bonjour à tous, Marion Aubert, je suis donc cofondatrice de Wavely. Wavely, on est spécialiste de l'analyse des sons et des vibrations pour le milieu industriel. J'avais plutôt pas prévu de parler en français. Je reste là-dessus ou je switch in English?
No, ce sera un bon exercice, good exercise for Dave to learn French. So, la prochaine présentation, c'est en français.
Ok,
c'est en français, non, pas de souci là-dessus. Par contre, voilà, n'hésitez pas si vous avez des questions. Voilà, vous avez une présentation avec Dave sur une typologie de capteurs IoT. Vous allez avoir une deuxième vision des capteurs IoT. Donc, vraiment, n'hésitez pas à poser des questions, que ce soit pour Marion ou pour Dave. Je vais commencer à partager la présentation. Hop. Et donc, Marion, je te laisse la main pour présenter ta partie, s'il te plaît.
Oui, donc bonjour à tous. Le sujet sur lequel je me proposais d'intervenir, c'était sur la responsabilité sociale et environnementale à travers les objets connectés, avec un focus sur le bruit, puisque nous on est donc spécialiste de l'analyse des sons, donc évidemment c'est ce sujet-là qui nous tient à la fois le plus à cœur et qu'on connaît le mieux. Peut-être démarrer en vous disant que voilà, il y a 3 millions de salariés aujourd'hui qui sont exposés exposés à des bruits nocifs dans le domaine du travail, que le bruit est reconnu comme une cause de maladie professionnelle, que le coût moyen d'une surdité professionnelle, c'est 100 000 €, et c'est donc finalement l'une des maladies professionnelles les plus coûteuses pour la collectivité, à la fois par son montant et sa fréquence. Donc voilà, c'est pas un sujet annexe, c'est un sujet vraiment important. Peut-être vous dire également que le bruit se mesure en décibels, pour ceux qui ne connaissent pas bien ce sujet-là, avec une échelle qui est un peu particulière, puisque à chaque fois que vous montez de 3 décibels, en fait, la quantité de bruit perçue passe du simple au double. Donc, quand on passe de 80 à 83 décibels, en fait, on a 2 fois plus de bruit. Vous avez là, alors je ne sais pas si vous voyez très bien, mais une échelle des niveaux de bruit pour voilà avoir un peu une idée de ce que ça peut représenter. On voit bien sur le graphique que à partir de 60-80 décibels, on commence à être dans le rouge. Ça correspond dans une usine à des bruits de tour d'usinage, de scie à ruban, de presse. On commence à arriver au niveau de seuil de danger autour de 85 décibels à peu près. C'est le bruit de la route, ça va être le bruit d'un trafic dense. C'est là aussi où on va commencer à devoir forcer la voix quand on parle avec quelqu'un. 100 décibels, c'est quand on doit crier pour se faire entendre. On est par exemple dans un atelier de chaudronnerie ou dans un concert de rock. Et puis quand on est autour de 130 décibels, là on ne peut plus se parler, on est dans le seuil de douleur. C'est le bruit de décollage d'un avion ou le banc d'essai d'un réacteur. Dans le monde du travail, on va considérer deux choses pour caractériser ce qu'on appelle la dose de bruit perçue. C'est-à-dire que c'est pas seulement le niveau sonore, c'est aussi la durée d'exposition. En fait, on va considérer, hop, je vais passer sur, voilà, on va regarder ce niveau d'exposition, puisque évidemment la douleur n'apparaît, comme je vous l'ai montré, qu'à 120 décibels, mais la fatigue auditive, le stress, le risque accru d'accident qui est lié à une exposition au bruit trop longue apparaît bien avant. En fait, ce que l'on va considérer, c'est le niveau d'exposition quotidienne au bruit sur 8 heures, moyenné dans le temps. Donc on va regarder finalement sur 8 heures d'une journée en moyenne, quelle est l'exposition au bruit qu'a reçu le salarié, et on va regarder aussi le niveau d'intensité maximum. Et donc, il y a des seuils qui sont fixés. Si vous êtes à 80 décibels, donc je reviens sur mon schéma, 80 décibels en moyenne sur la journée, 135 décibels en intensité maximum, alors l'obligation de l'employeur, c'est simplement de mettre à disposition des bouchons d'oreille. Si vous êtes à 85 décibels en moyenne sur la journée, 137 en maximum, alors les mesures de protection individuelle type bouchon d'oreille deviennent obligatoires. L'employeur doit en imposer le port et prendre des mesures est obligé de prendre des mesures pour réduire le bruit de son environnement. Donc type écran de protection acoustique, voilà, tout ce qui peut exister. Quand on atteint le seuil maximum, finalement, c'est 87 décibels en moyenne dans la journée et 140 en maximum. Donc tout ça pour dire qu'il y a une réglementation qui est très élevée autour de ces sujets-là et qui donc suppose d'avoir un peu une idée de ce qui se passe et de pouvoir le mesurer. Donc à la fois la réglementation n'impose pas forcément la mesure en continu, mais par contre pour pouvoir la respecter correctement, c'est utile. Donc d'où l'intérêt de l'IoT. Il y a évidemment plusieurs paramètres à prendre en compte. C'est le niveau sonore en décibels, j'en ai parlé, mais c'est également la durée, la fréquence d'exposition, j'en ai parlé. C'est aussi le type de son. C'est-à-dire qu'un son aigu va être plus dangereux qu'un son grave. Un son pur composé d'une seule fréquence type bip continu va être beaucoup plus traumatisant qu'un son complexe comme de la musique. Un son impulsionnel type bruit de marteau-piqueur par exemple qui va être ou coup de feu type soudain et imprévisible va être beaucoup plus dangereux qu'un son qui va monter tout doucement parce que l'oreille a le temps de s'habituer. Donc ça c'est également des différents paramètres qui peuvent prendre en compte dans des indicateurs psychoacoustiques. Donc voilà, ça c'était pour vous donner un peu quelques éléments sur le suivi, enfin l'intérêt du suivi acoustique dans le milieu du travail et le fait de pouvoir suivre cela. Mais des machines qui font du bruit, c'est pas seulement gênant pour les salariés. Des machines qui font du bruit ou qui vibrent, c'est aussi souvent des machines quand leur niveau de bruit augmente, leur niveau de vibration augmente, ce sont des machines qui surconsomment. Soit parce qu'elles sont usées, soit parce qu'elles peuvent avoir un mauvais réglage ou un dysfonctionnement. Et une machine qui se met à vibrer de façon beaucoup trop importante va souvent générer une usure prématurée. Donc le fait de pouvoir être alerté en cas de variation importante du niveau bruit de la machine ou du niveau de vibration de façon rapide et décorrélé évidemment des différents régimes qui se produisent. C'est-à-dire vraiment de venir identifier ce qui est en lien avec une anomalie sur le fonctionnement de la machine et non juste un changement de régime. C'est vraiment quelque chose qui va permettre aussi d'agir sur la surconsommation en énergie. Et donc là, je reboucle avec le sujet de la RSE. La responsabilité sociale de l'entreprise, c'est évidemment de pouvoir suivre le bien-être de ses salariés. Donc, je fais le lien avec la présentation juste d'avant également. Mais c'est aussi de pouvoir limiter ses consommations en énergie. Et donc, le fait de faire des suivis acoustiques ou vibratoires sur les machines permettent également de pouvoir repérer des dysfonctionnements. Ça peut permettre aussi de repérer des fuites d'air comprimé, par exemple. Donc c'est évidemment très important pour éviter de trop consommer et de gâcher des ressources, avec un intérêt à la fois économique mais aussi écologique. Peut-être pour vous dire en deux mots qui on est donc chez Wavely, on a créé la société en avril 2017 avec une très forte expertise sur l'analyse justement des sons et des vibrations comme je le disais, à la fois utilisant des techniques de traitement du signal sonore, mais aussi de machine learning, le tout embarqué sur des capteurs d'acoustique et de vibration. Voilà, on a deux produits finalement qu'on peut proposer pour faire suite à la présentation qui a été faite. C'est d'un côté ce capteur qui s'appelle Wavely Predict, qui permet d'alerter sur des anomalies détectées sur des machines. Donc finalement le Wavely Predict, il va apprendre le fonctionnement normal de la machine en suivant principalement la vibration, l'acoustique et la température pendant une phase d'apprentissage qui peut être de plusieurs jours à plusieurs semaines en fonction du type de machine. Et une fois que l'apprentissage a eu lieu, il va envoyer une alerte quand on a des grosses variations par rapport à cette période d'apprentissage. L'autre produit qui est à côté, Modulir, est vraiment un service de surveillance acoustique ou vibratoire 24/24 qui va vous permettre de calculer de nombreux indicateurs. Et donc, par exemple, si vous voulez faire un suivi sonore à la seconde pour pouvoir calculer les niveaux d'exposition des salariés dans l'usine, ça peut être ce type de produit qui peut y répondre, avec la capacité d'intégrer également des indicateurs en psychoacoustique, donc qui permettent de pas seulement mesurer le niveau sonore, mais l'ensemble des indicateurs qualitatifs sur le niveau, l'exposition au bruit. Voilà un peu ce que je voulais présenter. Je sais pas s'il y a des questions ou des remarques.
Donc en fait, merci beaucoup Marion. Il faut bien voir que toute cette approche avec l'IoT vraiment peut être tournée directement pour une approche RSE. Le côté RSE est importante et voire même obligatoire pour toutes les entreprises en France. Et le développement de différentes approches avec les capteurs IoT peuvent justement vous permettre de trouver certaines solutions. Il y a les capteurs acoustiques, vraiment ce côté d'analyser les bruits ambiants et dans le cadre de la production des employés. Avec Dave, on peut avoir des capteurs de présentiel ou des capteurs d'analyse de la qualité de l'air. Donc, Jacques, malheureusement, cette période un petit peu particulière due à la Covid-19, en fait, voilà, il est important de pouvoir s'assurer que l'environnement où travaillent tous les employés d'une entreprise soit sain. Donc c'est pour ça que vraiment toute cette approche avec les capteurs IoT, il y a une approche effectivement, on l'a dit dans les autres sessions, une approche où on va analyser les équipements, on va s'assurer de la bonne performance, on peut détecter s'il y a des anomalies, mais il y a aussi cette approche, comme je vous le disais, cette approche pour s'assurer de la protection et du bien-être de tous les employés. Donc pour ça, voilà, c'est vraiment quelque chose sur lequel on voulait vraiment insister. Est-ce que vous avez des questions par rapport aux deux présentations? Est-ce qu'il y a des choses sur lesquelles vous voudriez revenir ou qui vous ont paru pas claires? C'est l'occasion de pouvoir vraiment se renseigner sur ce type de solution, de telle manière à avoir une approche complète et sur le RSE. Après, voilà, sur la prochaine session, on va vraiment rentrer dans l'explication du RSE, qu'est-ce qui est important pour l'entreprise. Et derrière, voilà, vous allez avoir d'autres présentations demain. Où avec Dave, on va parler de quels sont les pièges à éviter sur l'implantation de capteurs IoT. On a eu aussi Nicolas ce matin de Vavli qui nous a parlé un petit peu de l'approche avec la biodiversité. Ça touche quand même énormément d'aspects les capteurs IoT. Donc, n'hésitez pas, si vous avez des questions, ça peut être aussi bien sur les protocoles utilisés, ça peut être la facilité d'installation. Donc, si les questions vous viennent après, écoutez, n'hésitez pas à nous recontacter et on se fera un plaisir de vous y répondre. Merci Marion, merci Dave. Thank you very much, Dave, for your presentation.
Pleasure, thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci tout le monde. Je vous souhaite de passer une bonne soirée et je vous dis à très bientôt.